Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what was the worst job interview you've had? I had an interview where I knew the answers I gave were good, solid examples. I understood the technical side well. But the interviewer kept sneering, being rude and saying really in a skeptical tone, and I got the distinct impression he hated me. About 20 minutes in, I thought about politely calling it a day and leaving, but in my innocence thought it would be good practice to stay. 40 minutes in, it's like a light switch goes off inside and he's the nicest guy. His eyes light up and he started hard selling the role and position to me. Introduces me to the team. The director interviews me and he and the team are lovely. Apparently, their interview technique is to be rude to see how you perform under pressure, and they'd all been observing using a camera and were impressed I remained so polite and calm throughout. They couldn't understand why I declined. Edit, to save me responding to comments. I understand pressure testing is a legitimate technique, and whilst I felt deeply uncomfortable and my gut was screaming at me to get out of there like in a nightclub when you know the creepy guy is really bad news and you need to get out, I understood that it was a possibility that that is what he could have been doing. However, to add more context, they had my work history including 10 years in the ambulance services, which involves resuscitation whilst the public yell at you and threaten you. I'm used to being polite and professional whilst being harassed and threatened. Nothing spreadsheet based, even pulling all-nighters is going to match that for pressure, and I'm well known for staying calm and composed all the time, even if I'm exploding inside. My biggest objection was not realizing I was being broadcast and hearing them discuss my reactions to my face, like I was some kind of movie actor. It felt so violating. I don't want to work for a bunch of duplicitous bastards wasn't obvious to them. Duplicitous bastards. Now there's a combination of words you don't hear often enough these days. The tricks are insane. You want to know how I handle under pressure? Let me give you a reference, and the name of a project we worked together to prompt them. Good for you not rewarding that behavior. I used to work in tech support. There were pressure tests as part of the training, but it was all above board, like, okay, I'm gonna pretend to be an asshole customer, because trust me, you will encounter someone like this. Pretending to be an asshole without proper explanation and context is just being an asshole. Let me give you a reference. I interview people a fair bit and I've been begging to end the idea of asking candidates for references. It's a total waste of time because in the 10 years I've been doing this, I've yet to call a reference that didn't swear the candidate hung the moon. Please don't take that as me endorsing what ARP's interviewer did. Just me whining about reference calls. At an interview to be a county street sweeper, guy asks me if I have a girlfriend, proceeds to rant for 5 minutes how young people don't get married anymore. Then he asks me what I want to avoid at the job. At the time I had no idea how to answer, as I'd never been asked that in an interview before. So I ask him to clarify, to which he just repeats the question, over and over until he gets super angry that I don't know how to answer that, then asks me to leave. To this day, biggest WTF interview I've had. What would I like to avoid? Stupid questions. I have asked a version of this: what are your least favorite tasks to do? I always try to set it up as non-threatening, but what I'm really asking is, are you going to be able to do some of the daily, not as fun stuff, along with the big things? If you can answer, I don't really like updating help articles, but I know if I can set aside 10 minutes a day to work on it, it's not a big deal or something similar, then you know your own work styles and are taking steps to mitigate problems. It's like asking for someone's weaknesses along with their strengths. I don't care if you're a procrastinator, I just want you to admit it and share with me how you overcome it. Maybe the correct answer would be, cars and trees. Showed up looking good in my suit with a ton of knowledge on Capital Partners. It turned out I had researched the wrong company named Capital Partners. Could have been worse, dude, at least you didn't get the wrong Four Seasons. Oh, what a night. I did major research on a company and expected questions in the interview. The only one they asked was, what is our slogan? Of course, I hadn't memorized that. As I left I saw it was on the fucking giant sign outside. ETA, thanks to all of the helpful people who are suggesting I should have researched the company. However, I will not be taking advice from you, as you managed to miss the words major and research in this comment itself, and therefore you are lacking in attention to detail. To be clear, I had recently read a book about the history of the company as I had a great interest, and I added to my body of knowledge with internet searches and specific web pages. I knew a great deal about the company, but I didn't memorize a slogan. To the people who suggested I should have turned the question around and offered my knowledge, yes, this is good advice, and I hope you will always be so glib. In this instance, I did attempt that, but the interview was ended by the supervisor who made 50p an hour more than my starting wage. There was a checklist involved, and an X was a knockout factor. But this part isn't funny, is it? I don't get why companies ask you things like that. As if it would be relevant to whatever you do each day. Interviewer, putting candy bars on the table to open the interview. Have a candy bar. Do you want Hershey's or Snickers? Me, neither, thanks. Go ahead, pick one. I don't want any candy now, thanks. Take one, Hershey's or Snickers. Okay, I'll take the Snickers. No, I want the Snickers. You take the Hershey's. No, thank you. Maybe they were trying to pull off some dumbass power move stunt that they saw in some movie. Or some test how this person reacts in a situation where they can't have what they want or something. There was a period where people wanted to do bullshit Google interviews. Interviews should be a conversation between people to see whether they are a good fit. It shouldn't be a test, unless you need a technical test portion, but that's only applicable in certain fields. I was interviewing for a job in Houston, and lived in Austin, about 2.5 hours away. I drove to Houston for the first round of interviews, and they said it went well and wanted to bring me in for a final interview, so I drove there again. It seemed like it went well and they told me they had one more interview to conduct and would have a decision tomorrow. So the next day came and went. I emailed the manager to ask if any decision had been made, nothing. Waited a couple more days, left a voicemail, nothing. Then a couple days later, I just called the main number for the company and told the receptionist why I was calling. She was like, well, someone just started in that job yesterday. They ghosted me after I drove a total of 10 hours to interview twice. Still salty about that 11 years later. That's fucked up. It's simple courtesy to send a thanks but no thanks to rejected applicants. An email at the very least, a call would be best, speaking from experience of being on both sides of the table. Even 11 years later, sorry dude. In the past 3 years I've been to about a dozen interviews. I've not once received a notice of rejection, only ghosting. I don't think courtesy emails are commonplace anymore, at least not for entry-level positions. Had an interview, went well. I was offering the job on the spot and accepted. The hour manager went to get the needed paperwork, came back 10 minutes later and said I must have forgot that we already filled this position. I'm sorry, but we don't have an opening. I could call you if something opens back up. I said no thank you. Oh my god, this unlocked one I'd forgotten about. I left work on a long lunch to interview because they flat out refused to interview me at a time I was not at work. Sounds somewhat reasonable, but I had occasional weekdays off, 2 to 4 per month. There was also a convoluted process for validating my parking, which I did. I showed up a bit early, waited about 40 minutes for someone I was told definitely was in, and apparently she was just eating lunch or something because on my way back to work I got a call from her asking where I was. She tried to reschedule. Stressful enough the first time. I'm not going to jump through hoops if you don't value me as a prospect enough to keep your own damn appointment. If she doesn't respect you as a potential employee, 100% she wouldn't respect you as an employee either. Video chat interview, red flag #1. The interview was with 10 interviewers, I was told it would be 1 on -1. Red flag #2, towards the end they asked if I had any questions. When I asked, do you all enjoy working here? They all looked at each other nervously for about 20 seconds until someone said, sure. I mean, as much as you can enjoy work, I guess. Nope. When you go in for a job interview, I think a good thing to ask is if they ever press charges. Jack Hady. I had a co-worker rob a convenience store. The footage was provided to the company and his clothes were found in a storage room. He kept his job. My personal favorite bad interview. I had been unemployed for a bit, was desperate for a new gig. Had gained a lot of weight living off of fast food, so my good pants didn't fit me very well. I sat down in the interview chair as the person was walking around to their side of the desk. And the button of my pants popped off, did a one-hopper off of the desk, and right into their coffee cup. Swished, no clink at all. For the entire interview, they were sipping their coffee, and I was sitting there with my pants unbuttoned waiting for the big reveal. I left before they got to the bottom of their coffee, but they had to have put 2 and 2 together. This narrowly beats out the time I was offered water from a carafe at an interview, dropped it, and soaked both interviewers. At least that one wasn't as psychologically tense. Edit, no, I didn't get the job. Edit 2, yes, I should have told them. But I froze up, and they were a very talkative interviewer. This needs to be a short film. For real, this is a comedy sketch at least. Hilarious. I'll be honest, if I was interviewing someone then found a button at the bottom of my coffee, I'd be confused as hell, but my first thought would not be his button popped off his pants and flew into my cup without my noticing. I'd probably assume it somehow got into the cup before I poured the coffee in and I didn't notice it.